This is the last message in a series entitled Origins. And what we've been looking at is we've been looking at some of the things that we see in the book of Genesis, kind of the beginnings of things, the origins of things. We talked about the beginning of marriage. God created marriage. What was his purpose? God creates everything with and for a purpose. So what was the original purpose for marriage? We looked at worship. What was the original purpose and design that God had when he created this opportunity that we have to worship him? What's he looking for? What does that accomplish in us? And how are we a part of that? And why is that so significant that we get to worship him? Now, the answer to all those questions is on our website. I can't do the whole sermon again, but we answered those questions. I think we did. And you can, of course, go to the YouTube page or the Facebook page or the website and listen to those messages. Today's a little different. Today almost feels like, it almost feels a little fatherly for me, or grandfatherly, depending on how old you are in this room, because I'm getting up there. I'm old enough to be somebody's father, most people's father, and somebody's grandfather. That's what happens that's just the upside of living. You know, you wake up and you're breathing. Oh, this is going to be a good day. I'm alive. I'm here, you know. And so this feels a little fatherly because we're going to talk about the beginning or the origins. This is origins. We're going to talk about the origin or the beginning of work. It is a 4-letter word, but not a bad one. We're going to talk about the beginning and origin of work. Now, I know that doesn't sound like super, super exciting, but I'm telling you, folks, there is something significant to this, all right? And the very first point is this. We could say it this way. You know, in the beginning, it says God created, and we could also say, in the beginning, work. In other words, the reason why I say that is because work wasn't something that God established. It didn't happen after the fall, after Adam and Eve fell, after sin entered the world. That's not when work happened. Work was established, labor was established way before Adam and Eve fell. So in other words, work is not a bad 4-letter word. Work is not a part of the curse of the law. God established the idea of work way before Satan deceived Adam and Eve. And there's a reason for that. We're going to take a few moments and look at that. And again, this is going to be helpful. Genesis chapter 2, verse 15. Here's what it says. Then the Lord God took the man, that's Adam, and put him in the Garden of Eden. Now, the Garden of Eden, you all realize, was paradise, right, everybody? It was paradise. I'm talking about perfect temperature. I'm not sure what that is, but I think it's like around 70 degrees. No humidity, right? I mean, just this beautiful garden that had everything they could ever need. God took Adam, took man, put him in the garden, and it goes on to say, to tend it and keep it. One translation says, God took the man and set him down in the Garden of Eden to work the ground and keep it in order. Now, so think about this. There was literally no reason for Adam to work physically. It wasn't like he had to create something. Everything they needed was in that garden. All the food they needed was there. They were living in paradise. Yet still, God said, you need to do something. I created you, but you need to be able to put your hand to something. This is what God is saying. He's saying that you and I, God is saying to man, you and I need to be able to partner together with something. So I'm going to give you everything you need, and then you're going to work it. And we're going to have this partnership. You're going to be able to work with me, and I'm going to work with you, and we're going to experience that partnership together. The reason why I believe God established work, established labor, is because of the development of character that takes place, that's developed in the process of labor and work. Because that's really the only reason why God established that with Adam. He didn't necessarily need to do it, well, not for the reasons we think. He needed to do it for a different reason. God needed Adam to work for a different reason because God knew what it would do in Adam's heart. I think I told you this story before where there's this beautiful garden in Europe, in England rather, and in Europe, and people would come from all over the world to view this garden. It was beautiful. It was a tourist site, and one lady was admiring the garden. She just happened to see the gardener, and I think I've told you this before, and she told the gardener, isn't isn't this beautiful? Isn't it beautiful what God created? Isn't it beautiful what God created, this beautiful garden? And the gardener kind of looked at her and smiled. He says, yes, ma'am, it really is. But you should have seen what it looked like before God and I started working on it together. Right? And I know some of you have heard that story already before, but there's that partnership that is always necessary. Does that make sense, everybody? Just being God's expression on the earth, he needs us to be here. He has chosen us to be his expression. And so that all began with this whole idea of God creating this place called perfection, the Garden of Eden. But then he tells Adam, you got a job. He's like, what do you mean I got a job? I thought I was going to be swinging in a hammock with a little drink with an umbrella in it. Non-alcoholic, by the way. But I thought I was just going to be swinging back and forth in this hammock and just kind of chilling and hanging out and cracking coconuts and drinking. No, God says, no, you can't live like that. There's something, you'll miss something. Something's going to get twisted inside of you. I need you to take care of this garden. Now, here's another thing I want you to notice. Ladies in the house, here's what I want you to know. God gave Adam a job before he gave him a wife. There's a godly word. He's so cute. Does he have a job? No. That cuteness is going to wear off real fast. He's so fine, I know, but he should be fine enough to have a job. And keep it. Right? I have said this before, not 10 jobs in 1 year. Oh, he's had a job. He's got lots of jobs. Okay, wait a minute. That's a problem too. Right? And so there was this process that God knew would be developed in Adam and is developed in us. In Ecclesiastes chapter 5, it says that our labor is a gift from God and that we should be able to rejoice in it. That's based on how we view it. Is it just this horrible necessity and I just can't wait till I retire? And by the way, there's nowhere in the scriptures. Retirement is not in the Bible at all. Now, I'm not saying that you can't retire from your current job. If you're at the refinery and after so many years, you retire. I'm not saying that. I'm not talking about that kind of retirement. I'm saying that something doesn't quite sit right in us. Something kind of breaks in us when where in the world do we get this idea that it's supposed to be 65? I'm going to be 60 in March, and I guarantee you I could still take half of you if I needed to. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I'm not old and decrepit. Like the government says, 65, you're done, you can't work anymore. We're going to put you out to pasture. What about Caleb when he turned to Moses and he said, look, I'm 80 years old and I can fight still like a 40-year-old man. I want my mountain. God promised me that mountain and I'm going to get that. He's 80 years old. What about that? What happened there, right? This whole idea, we've allowed the government and culture and society to, I'm telling you, something breaks in us when we walk away from a job. Go ahead and retire from that. But then find something for you to do. Find something, because by the time we're 65, we should be more spiritual than we've ever been. We should be wiser than we've ever been. And we can believe God for strong health, right, everybody? We can believe God to still provide and contribute to society and do something for God. Go on the mission field. Go on a bunch of mission trips. Serve in your local church. Do something. But let's not retire and just sit back. Man, something breaks in us. Does this make sense? This all goes back to why God created work, see? Something is established in us. It develops character. Work develops a sense of personal responsibility. That doesn't happen when you don't work. People who refuse to work when they can, I'm not talking about folks that are disabled and they can't work. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about folks that can work, but they refuse to work. They lose a sense of personal responsibility. They stop taking personal responsibility for their own lives. And it's everybody's fault why they're on the bottom end of life. 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, Paul said this, for even when we were with you, we commanded you this, if anyone will not work, neither will he eat. Now again, I'm not talking about somebody who's going through a rough patch or they've been laid off and they're looking for a job. And Bonnie and I have been in those situations where folks have been kind and gracious to us, right? And we go through those times, but what's the Bible talking about here? He's talking about folks who can work, but they refuse not to. They're hitchhikers in life. They want to ride around in somebody else's car, and somebody else is making the car payment and paying for the gas, but they want to ride along. A cardboard sign that says, "We'll work for food." My response is, we all do. Now, I know some folks can go through a difficult time, and we need to be generous and gracious, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But I'm telling you that God created this idea of work and labor for a reason, because something is established, something that happens on the inside of us. Work helps us develop an understanding of authority and relational skills. You know what work does? It continues what happens when we're going through grade school. When on our report, I don't know if they do this anymore, on the report card it says, works and plays well with others. Work helps continue that process. It helps us understand how to relate with authority. Well, my boss is a knucklehead. I know, but working will help teach you how to relate and function in that situation and do it honorably before the Lord, so that your witness is strong no matter how bad your boss is. Does this make sense, everybody? I'm telling you, anybody who refuses to work because they believe every job that they have, they're smarter than the boss, that's a problem. They've got a problem with authority. Now listen. If I have a problem with authority here, according to the Bible, Paul says I have a problem with authority here. And if I know how to respond to the authority here, that helps me respond better to the authority here. Does that make sense, everybody? Yes or no? Okay. And so work develops that. It helps us develop a sense of value. We understand the proper value of things. We understand the value of people. We understand the value of $1. I remember when I was 14, of course, when you're 14 years of age, you can work, you should work, but you can't get paid. And that summer, my mom says, "You're going to get a job." And I'm like, "How am I going to get a job? I'm too young to get paid." And she said, "Who said anything about getting paid?" Okay, I guess I missed that little detail that was in your mind. "You're going to volunteer at the hospital." Okay, I volunteered at the hospital. I didn't get paid. Now you could say, "Well, that didn't seem fair." That's a great lesson to learn. Life isn't always fair. And you learn to do something for others without getting paid. It gives you a little lesson on this idea of generosity, which we're going to talk about later. But you see what I'm saying? It develops character, doesn't it? So I was wheeling patients to where they're supposed to be. I was changing bedpans. None of it really glamorous. It was sorting the doctor's mail. I didn't get paid for any of it. But it kept me from just wandering around and getting into trouble that summer. It's a great lesson. Your kids ought to have chores. And if they don't do them, don't pay them. "Pastor, that's just mean." No, it's not mean. It's mean to pay them for nothing. You're doing them a disservice. Then they grow up with a sense of entitlement. What is that? The belief that a person is deserving or entitled to a certain privilege just because. Here's what's beautiful. We don't earn our salvation. Aren't you thankful for that? We don't earn God's love. Can we say thank you, Lord, for that? We don't earn God's grace, right? But we do earn a paycheck. We do earn the right to be heard. We do earn a place at the table. We do a great job. We're competent. We're excellent at what we do. We follow through. We're on time. We're consistent, right? And that earns us a pay raise. That earns us a promotion. That earns us a place at the table. That earns us the right to be heard. I had a friend of mine when iPhones just came out. They were super expensive. His daughter, who was 15, had an iPhone. I'm like, how in the world did she get an iPhone when she doesn't have a job? She doesn't have iPhone money. No, mom and dad had iPhone money. See, my thing is I'm not saying she can't have an iPhone. I'm just saying let her get a job and let her earn iPhone money. and pay for that iPhone herself, because then she'll understand the value of that iPhone. See, the worst thing that happens is when people win the lottery, 9 times out of 10, it destroys them. Why? Because they don't know how to handle millions, because they've never grew to that. So it's too much for them. Does that make sense, everybody? We all know about the son of the guy that owns the company. And if you put the son in charge of everybody, and he didn't get a chance to start in the warehouse and work his way up and literally earn the position of being the heir apparent in that company, if he isn't allowed to do that, it's a disservice to him. And we know what those guys are like when somebody just hands it to them. They're horrible bosses. They have no idea what they're doing. They don't know how the company got there. They don't know why it's prospering. They've never gone through the process. Are you hearing what I'm saying, everybody? There's something that happens in us when we allow ourselves to go through that process of getting up. And here's the other thing too. It really cracks me up is people are like, they want to get out of school and find their dream job. And I'm like, just find a job and be faithful at that, and God will get you your dream job. Jesus said if you're faithful over little, he will make you ruler over much. But we can't shortcut the little to get to the much. If we do, it creates pain. Okay, right? Does that make sense? There's a law of 6 days, for example. God could have created everything in one day, but he chose not to. And by the way, God had a job. He worked 6 days, rested on the seventh. He could have created everything in one day. You know, he is capable of doing that, right? But for some reason, he chose to go through this process of 6 days. We need to go through the process of 6 days. Children do. They learn how to roll over. They learn how to crawl. They learn how to walk. Then they learn how to run. They don't come out sprinting. That's odd. We can't short circuit that process. Here's what happens. I'm talking about the law of 6 days. Here's what happens. People want to live at day 5 when they haven't conquered and been successful at day 1. Folks get married, young couples get married, they want to live like their parents. They want to have the kind of house their parents have. They want to drive the kind of cars their parents drive. They want to have the kind of furniture their parents have. But they don't realize it took their parents 30 years to get there, but they want to get there now. That's shortcutting the process. There's a law of 6 days. You grow into that. Does this make sense, everybody? There's something to be said with eating oatmeal 3 times a day. There's something to be said that's sitting in lawn chairs. There's something to be said for doing a job, getting out there, being faithful, being consistent, trusting God, being faithful in our giving, being faithful in the way that we work, seeing God promote us, seeing us get to that place where we are stronger and stronger financially. We're good stewards. We're learning how to save. We're learning how to give. We live within our means because we understand the value of a dollar, so we don't spend more money than we earn. We figure out what a budget is, and we learn how to follow that, and then God builds us and develops us and blesses us, and we get to day 6 and we're able to be generous to other people because we've gone through the process. Does this make sense? And where does it all start? It all starts with getting a job. Remember the old 50 song? Get a job. Na 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 na. I don't think that was the right song. The idea, or maybe it was the right song until I sang it. The idea is this idea of everyone gets a free or an equal slice of the pie without doing the work. I'm not talking political now. That's not even biblical. Now, the early church, it says they shared everything they had in common. Paul came back later on and said, no. If this guy isn't going to work, he's not going to eat. Paul says, you're not helping each other. Ephesians chapter 4 says you need to work with your hands, mind your own business, and provide something in your work that takes care of your family as well as allows you to be a blessing and be generous to others. But that process, so this idea of everyone getting an equal slice of the pie just because they were birthed and they breathe air, that is not even biblical, folks. You will not find that anywhere in the Bible. As a matter of fact, you'll find just the opposite of that. It destroys people to give them something without them learning how to bring or add value in what they do. It's a seductive thing. This idea of wealth without work is here's what I've got written down here. Wealth without work refers to the practice of getting something for nothing, manipulating markets and assets so you don't have to work or produce so you don't have to produce any added value. You just manipulate people. Listen, you manipulate people and things. So there are actual, right now in our society, it's like the biggest people, they act like the biggest thing you can do is make a lot of money without doing any work. Like that's smart, like that's great. Making money without paying taxes. Benefiting from free government programs without carrying a fair share of the financial burdens. Enjoying the perks of citizenship of a country and membership of a corporation without assuming any of the risk or responsibility. The guy making the widgets shouldn't have, he doesn't have to earn the same as the CEO of the company. The guy that started the company, the guy that took all of his savings, rolled the dice, went out there, made the risk, did the hard work, created the company, created the widgets, are you hearing what I'm saying? Created the need for the widgets. And then the guy making them says, well, I should make as much as him. No, you don't have the same amount of risk involved as he does. Well, that doesn't seem fair. Your idea of fair is skewed. Let me tell you what fair is. You go out and start your own company and believe God to bless you, and I believe He will. Does that make sense, everybody? You see what I'm saying? Yes or no? In Matthew 25, the master gave to one guy, he gave 5 talents, to another guy he gave 2 talents, to another guy he gave 1 talent. And the Bible says, each according to their ability. What was fair is that the way the master was going to judge the 5, 2, and 1 talent guy was based on what they did with what God gave them. He wasn't comparing a 1 talent guy with a 5 talent guy. Does that make sense, everybody? He said, all right, I've given you much, so much is required. I've given you this much, so I'm looking for this from you. And the 1 talent guy, I gave you this, and I'm looking for this from you. But he wasn't comparing a 1 talent guy with a 5 talent guy. He just wanted him to be faithful with what he had. Just do something with it. Well, the 1 talent guy dug a hole and buried it. And the master said, man, that was a wrong move. That was not the right move at all. You made a big mistake there. You should have trusted God. You should have trusted me. You should have understood the value of what you had. Does this make sense, everybody? I remember working in a call center, and they would give you a certain amount of leads, and the more you sold, the more leads you got. That's just how it works. See, I've worked commission for years. Commission sales, that is the simplest way to live. Because either you're good at what you do and you sell and make money, you get paid. If you're not very good at what you do, you don't get paid. And they typically don't have to fire you. You just starve yourself out of that job because you're not making any money. It's so beautiful. It's just perfect. It's beautiful. And I've done that for years. And it's like, it's on me to figure out a way to make this work and sell something and produce something, then I get paid. So we're in this call center, and they would increase the leads based on how productive you were. This one guy was just not very productive, and he could have been better at it. I overheard him on the phone. He was good, but he was just kind of lazy. And you know what? The word lazy can't be a politically incorrect word, folks. He was just lazy. He was good. He just didn't want to do it. He showed up one day and he was complaining. He complained to the boss. He says, I've got less leads. Why do I have less leads? Well, for the last 3 months, you haven't hardly done anything with them. Well, what did you do with them? Well, we gave them to some of the other guys that are doing more. Well, that didn't seem fair. Those are my leads. And the boss said, they're not your leads. Those aren't your leads. You're confused. Those are the company's leads. They bought those leads. They paid for those leads. They gave them to you to be a good steward of them. Apparently, you're struggling with that. So we took those leads and gave them to folks that are doing better. Now, we'll help you do better, but we're not going to just keep giving you more leads if you're not really doing what you need to. Does this make sense, everybody? I got some of his leads. I didn't feel guilty about it at all. I just felt responsible. I felt responsible to do right by the company and work those leads. This makes sense, everybody. Do you see, and I know I've gone over time already, guys. Do you see how this develops character in us, right? So my last two points, because I just went really way over time, I'm so sorry, is work as an expression of our faith toward God. Colossians tells us to do everything with all of our heart. You know, even if we don't like the job, just put your whole heart into it and be a good witness. And then number 3, work enables us to be generous. Enables us to be generous. And why that's so beautiful is because God is so generous towards us, isn't he? Let's all stand to our feet if we could. And I'm going to ask the worship team to lead us in this closing song. And as they do, if you want to, at this moment, go. And as they begin to sing, you're welcome to go to the communion tables. And you're welcome to come here and pray. But let's just respond to the Lord. And let's ask God to speak to our own hearts, you know. But maybe today what really needs to happen is you need to understand how generous God is to you. And that he's generously poured out his love. So Father, help us. Lead us as we worship today. Thank you, God, for your goodness. Encourage your people now. In Jesus' name, let's worship him together.